It's high-tech operation.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Divorce View Talk Show. Hi, I'm Joanie Winberg, certified human behavior consultant, founder of GettingAlongSolutions.com, and also FirstStartAfterDivorce.com. It's always a pleasure to do this show every week, every Wednesday at 6 p.m. with my co-host, Rosalind Sedacca. Hello, Roz.
Hi, Joanie. Good to see you, and I know that you've had a bit of snow in your neck of the woods, so we're glad to see you nice and toasty warm indoors. I'm Rosalind Sedacca. I'm recognized as the voice of child-centered divorce, the founder of the Child-Centered Divorce Network, and a divorce and parenting coach. And this is the last week of January, which is International Child-Centered Divorce Month. And for this entire month, we've been devoting our attention especially to focusing on issues related to divorce and parenting, whether it's before, during, or long after divorce. As you all know, if you're a parent, co-parenting never ends for the rest of your life. And so you want to do it right, and you want to give your children the very best support they can get. And we have today a guest that I'm just thrilled to have on because he's a man that I have a great deal of respect for. He's a family law attorney who really embraces family law and cares about the dynamics of the family, the parent-child relationship, and doing his best to create a win-win outcome for everyone in the family. And those of you who are looking for attorneys, that's the most important facet. So I want to introduce you to and give a warm welcome to Mike Mistrasi. Hi, Mike.
Hello, how you doing? Roz, Joanie, thanks for having me, and it's awesome. You guys have done a lot of work since we last spoke, and congratulations.
Well, Mike, we're thrilled to have you on the show today. We've got a really interesting topic, and I'm just ready to dig into this one, but it's called Madness, or Ending the Madness and Preserving Parent-Child Relationship. And Mike, you had mentioned that you have seen over the years, and you've been an attorney quite a long time. I just want to make sure everyone knows how long. You've been, what, 20 years at least?
25 years. I got the hair to prove it.
Okay. Okay. But as far as you brought up a good point that we've never really talked about on the show was good parent, bad parent scorecard. I think that's really a topic that we should discuss because you probably do see that yourself, and I know Roz and I probably see that and working with people after divorce, but they're really keeping score. So kind of clarify that for us and update us on that.
And depending on where people are in the process, they can relate to it more than others. But basically, if it's a situation where court is inevitable or it's in the future and everything that people do, as you know, is they're like under a microscope and everything's magnified like 10 times. So, and lawyers will often tell people, keep a journal, write this down, keep it in the calendar, and write all these things down. So consequently, people are looking for things that, aha, he did this or she did that, and they keep score of all these bad things. And they can be like big things or little things. Like, for example, I guess I confess one of these. Near and dear to my heart was an issue of lateness way back when. And I'm now 18 years post-divorce, and my son is 21 and doing wonderful. So I can talk about Mom a little bit, and I don't mean it disrespectfully. But what happened is back when she would always be late. And that was just her MO. And it was, when we were together, she was late a lot. And when we separated, she would bring my son to my house, and I would take him to her house, and that was via court order. But so it'd always be late, and I would get so hostile and so pissed off or so upset about that. I would be like, okay, she's late again, and so I had this scorecard, and each time he was supposed to come, he was 10 minutes late, 20 minutes late, and so I'm keeping records of all these different things. Meanwhile, I'm still getting upset and making a big deal out of it. And now you look back, it's like, okay, you're late, so what? But so what I would do in keeping score like that, finally it dawned on me, you know what? If he's supposed to be here at 6, and I have plans, say with my parents or whatever, to go somewhere, to be somewhere, or eat dinner, well, I don't make him at 6 or 6:15 because he's not going to be there at 6 or 6:15. So what I did is his court-ordered arrival time of 6 o'clock, in my mind, I changed that to 6:30. So when it was 6:20 or 6:25, I was happy because he was early. And so you got to make the adjustment in your mind sometimes, or you drive yourself crazy. But that's just an example of how people keep score of things, you know, and they'll keep score of things like, I asked for this extra time and he said no, or she said no, and things like that. So they keep, you know, they keep score of all these negative things.
And I'm just curious, do people keep score so that they can bring it to court?
Yeah, what that does a lot of times is it gives people what they think it's going to do for them is give them the evidence that they need. So, for example, and lateness isn't the greatest issue. Lateness is just one that to me was like constant, and I over-exaggerated with it anyway, or made it more than it needed to be, and that was my mistake. So, but the keeping score can have the purpose usually of documenting certain behaviors of the other parent that might make them look bad, and by comparison make you look good. Because if people go to court, they're so used to doing the bashing, and that's where you come in with the ending to madness. Is like, he did this, she did that, he did this, and sometimes the things that people complain about were fine when they were together and when they were married. For example, like lateness. Okay, well, I married a lady who was always late, and then consequently we're going through a separation divorce. I'm going to complain bitterly because she's always late. You know, so some things just really don't matter. But the madness, the madness is from just this constant living under a microscope and pointing out the flaws in the other person, whether it's character flaws, parenting flaws, activity flaws, and things they do or don't do. Like, you know, he or she didn't go on the field trip. He or she didn't go to parent-teacher conference, and all these kind of little things that add up. In fact, let me deviate for 1 second. There is, I have no affiliation or interest in this company, but there is a company called legallogs.com. And legallogs.com, I don't know if you've heard of it, was developed by a guy who went through all these things and kept all these mounds of evidence and notebooks and all that, and then found what I found, and a lot of people find, they don't matter, and they never get into evidence anyway. So, and a lot of times it can be a waste of time, but because you're too unorganized. But legal logs, you can put all these things into the computer, and you can categorize them, you can sort them, you can organize them for court and for evidence purposes and things like that. So legallogs.com, it really is something that if I'd have had it, you know, back when I was going through my saga, it would have really, really helped because it's so hard to be organized.
Now, just to clarify, did you say legal logs, LOGS.com?
Yes, legallogs.com. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah, check it out. It's really, I think it costs like the users are like $10 a month, you know, but it's really, I really love it. I wish I should have invented it way back when.
Do you actually use that with your clients now to have them keep track?
Yeah, I have a couple of clients that use it, and it is very, very helpful. The issue that I have is I don't want clients to be in that mode. I want to try to keep them from having to live like that. But if you have to live like that and you have to keep track of all these things, that's a great tool that's up with the times, the computer, and all those kind of things to do it with. But
let's talk about the fact of the consequences when you have two opposing parents who are playing that game, that tit for tat, and one upping the other one, and each one looking for the worst. And what happens to the family dynamic? What happens to co-parenting? What happens to the kids?
Oh, first of all, it's a miserable way to live. It's just like what it is. It's one never-ending ball of stress, and people get fixated on things that they normally could care less about. And if they're in the litigation process and you have lawyers involved that are both adversarial in nature, then that gets taken to a whole nother level because now you have the lawyer. My lawyer can write a meaner letter than you can, you know, than your lawyer can. So you have that whole dynamic going on. So the one message is to really get off of that track and not live that way. So when you talk about a scorecard, what I encourage people to do is instead of keeping score of all these bad things that this person did, keep score of all the good things that you're doing, right? So for example, I might keep score to say, okay, ex-wife asked me if I could switch weekends because of such and such, right? And meanwhile, if I ask for that, it's never going to happen. But so the instinct is to say, well, no, we're going to stick with that because you don't cut me any slack. So what you say is such and such a date, so and so asked, and I said sure. You know what I mean? And guess what? I didn't ask for anything in return. It's, you know what I mean? It's not like I need makeup time or you took my Friday, so I need your Tuesday. You know, it's like get over it. And so keep score of things that you're doing, you know, in a positive way for positive parenting. So what happens is it's almost like the Pavlov's dog thing and the conditioning. It's like if you keep doing that, the other side is going to realize, that first of all they're not getting to you like they used to get to you.
That's right.
And now you're doing all these good things, and hey, you just changed the rules. Now you're starting to keep score of good things. So guess what? They got to start doing some good things, and it takes a while, and it can take months, and it can take years, but it really, really pays off somewhere along the line. And if it doesn't, or while it's not paying off, you can rest assured that you're at least doing the right thing. So I say ending the madness is just like try to live normal. Life is too short. So it's like, okay, if you were, and Roz, I know you like this from before. I said way back when is I used to say to myself in those kind of situations, if we were two normal people, what would I do? So if we weren't going through this stuff, and going through all these emotional things and everything, what would I do? Well, if the answer is I would do X, then the answer now is do X, or let your child do X. It's a hard thing to do, but you've got to have a shift in mindset.
I think it's such a profound statement. If we were still married, what would I be doing about this situation? It really stops you in your track to think about, am I playing the game differently to get back at my ex, as opposed to just making sound parenting decisions. I love that, Mike, and I think it's so important for everyone to grasp and hold on to that thought, because it really keeps you down the right track. And I so support your finding positive things. We're all role modeling for our children, whether our exes are cooperating or not. We're showing our children how to behave under challenging situations. And when kids see the difference between a parent responding in a positive way, being helpful, being cooperative, bending over backwards, not looking for itty-bitty things to get aggravated over, versus the parent who's doing the opposite, the children are going to make decisions about that themselves. And so it's always a win to take the high road, even though it may not pay that moment. It's going to win for you in life.
It really. Go ahead.
That's a good point. And also, when the scorecard, although you shouldn't have to keep a scorecard, and it might sound silly, but the scorecard reinforces things that we should be doing anyway. So what happens is by keeping the scorecard, we're actually doing the things that we might otherwise overlook, and it's good. And for example, like when people are going through custody battles, you will see, for example, say a father who has never been active in church, for example. All of a sudden, he's like the CCD teacher now. You know what I mean? And things like that, or just doing things that seem out of the norm. But guess what? Even if they're being done for show or for that scorecard, there are things that are good. As long as there are things that are good for the child, it's still a win-win situation. So even in all that madness, you got to still look for win-wins, even when they're small, because the small things.
And the bottom line is, you're going to feel better about yourself, if you're doing the right thing. I always have the philosophy that when in doubt, do the right thing. But also, I remember even working with my ex, I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to, and it wasn't like a vicious thing. I just said, I'm going to kill him with kindness. And it was really who I was anyways, that type of thing. And I remember one time when I just said, no problem. And his response was, you would do that for me? And I mean, it just flipped the whole relationship around.
That would go in your scorecard. That would go in your scorecard.
Yeah, and so he just saw that I wasn't doing it. I was just doing it for just that's who I was, and it really just started heading in the right direction. So I think it's something that is contagious when you're doing kind things, and it might take your ex longer to get into that mindset, but it does start to get. I look at it as kindness is contagious, but also it's a fabulous role model for your kids so that they grow up and see that, and when they become adults and parents themselves.
And the challenge sometimes is to not go overboard where you're just a doormat or you're just doing whatever. I know that it was never you. I understand that, but I was just saying it. But that's what that's one fear that you got to look out for sometimes in some relationships. So it's hard. You may say yes, 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 and then all of a sudden there's a time where you got to say no, I'm not doing that, or we're not going to do that, and that's part of it. But if you do it, if you have a history of doing yeses when it was appropriate to do, And then when you have an occasional no, it's not like, oh, here we go again, because it's different.
And hopefully that person will have changed their mindset somewhat to maybe help with doing the right thing.
And usually, unfortunately, it doesn't happen at the same time. So one might get the mindset.
We won't ask for that much.
What's that?
I said we won't ask for that much.
No,
I have an important question for you. As an attorney, you're seeing families day after day go through the divorce process. Can you intuitively pick out the ones that are going to be co-parenting more successfully than others based on what their divorce situation is like? Are there any connections and clues and insights you could give us about going through divorce and how it's going to affect the long-term outcome for the family, meaning the children especially?
Yeah, I think a lot of times I feel that I can. I mean, every now and then you're surprised, but and Roz, I'm sure both of you are probably familiar with that. Is it Bill Eddy? Is that how you pronounce his last name? Eddy?
Yeah.
I think it's E-D-Y. He has he has a number of books that deal with like personality disorders and things like that. So sometimes, like I had somebody yesterday was telling me about. Well, I'll switch it. But I had somebody was telling me about their spouse and just the different personality traits and the things that were going on, and it appeared it was like one of those histrionic, borderline personalities. And sometimes, like with people like that, a lot of times you're either in life in general, you are either their friend or their enemy. There's no gray. There's no, you know what I mean? It's either black or white. And sometimes when you have people on the other side who are that way by nature, right, and they feel that they've been aggrieved, that's a real hard road a lot of times. So sometimes you just have to really ask enough questions about the dynamics of the relationship and the people themselves and other situations, and you can get a good gauge as to how likely things may work out co-parenting wise.
I'm kind of curious, Mike. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
Somebody specializes in conflict issues, and I was wondering if you could address how you feel conflict affects the results of a divorce and co-parenting.
I mean, the conflict is what fuels the madness situation and the different ways people do not effectively deal with the conflict. That's what kind of like perpetuates the one-upsmanship, where you did this, so I'm mad at you in this conflict, so I'm going to take it up a notch, or I'm going to do this. And what goes around comes around. But the conflict, and along with the conflict is the anger. I think the biggest thing early on is you've got to get rid of the anger, because the anger fuels the conflict and it fuels the fear, and then the fear makes anger, and it's circular. But the anger is a huge, huge part of all of it. And I think that for people to take an anger management course or to read or get CDs on the subject, and that's really, really useful, because when it's all said and done, it's really still all about communication. So if you to effectively communicate, at least I know when I'm angry, my communication might not be the most effective. I might get somebody's attention, but it's not going to be for the right reasons necessarily. So basically, anger under control.
I was curious, Mike, because I remember, because you and I have known each other for a long time, and I remember you were going through the early years, just like you said, how it would really drive you crazy when your son would arrive late, and now you've just kind of let it go. Maybe, is there any way that you can help parents, understand how you came about? Did you just finally said, hey, this is ridiculous, I've got to let it go, I've got to move on? Do you remember how you actually went from that frustration and anger to now I see a different guy, you let go and say, what's the big deal? It's 10 minutes, 20 minutes.
I think a lot of it, I guess it's it's time. Time does heal a lot of things,
okay.
And it just gets old as you see life passing you by. And then something else, actually, it's weird how you remember things. Way back when, there was a little boy, he was on Oprah, his name is Matty, and it's like Stenophagus, I can't forget his last name. But he had a trach, and he had, I think it was, what disease he had, but he died really, really young. Mm-hmm. And he was called like a peacemaker. He would write poems and stuff like that. And so he was a young kid, and my son was real young at that time. And he was at a like a book signing thing for his book, and it was at Hooters, and I didn't make it to be at Hooters. But that's where it was. And so we go to Hooters. And to see that have this boy with a book signing, and just part of it was for my son to say, okay, not to feel sorry for him, but to be like, look at this boy, how happy he is, and how much he's doing, and he's in a wheelchair, and his mom has mobility issues as well. So you look at things like that, and I think it's good for kids to learn those things, and it's also good for us as adults to say, wait a minute, all this crap that I'm worrying about, and I see this little boy over here who doesn't have much life to live, and stuff like that, doing all these wonderful things. And it really makes you think. And then, think about it. We all, unfortunately, as we get older, know people who have lost children, And I've had some very good friends lose children like in their 20s, and I don't know how any parent even ever gets over that. So it's like, okay, just think about how those parents would feel and how they would love the opportunity to have some things over if they were divorced, for example, and maybe they fought about their child. Maybe they didn't give the child as much of a life as they should have. And now he or she is gone. So sometimes you just got to put things in perspective. And I can remember it's almost like the way the world comes off at some point where you just say, you know what, it's like whatever this other person has done, I don't care. I forgive them, and maybe not because I'm being kind to them, but I'm forgiving them to relieve it off of my shoulders.
Right.
But you need to do that as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a good time for us to ask Mike about his book because I read it. It's a wonderful book. I highly recommend it. Tell us the name and how to find it, Mike.
The book is called, let's see if we can say it, Stop Fighting Over the Kids, Resolving Day-to-Day Custody Conflict and Divorce Situation. It's on Amazon, and you can actually get it on my website, and I have it now where you can actually get a free PDF version of it. If you go to MikeTheLawyer.com, you can access a PDF version, and it also has a link to Kindle and Amazon where you can get it directly from Amazon.
So your website again was
MikeTheLawyer.com.
MikeTheLawyer.com. Okay, I just want to make sure they had that. It is an excellent book, and while we're talking about resources, I have a new anger management program for co-parents, and I don't have the link memorized, so I will have to post it on our divorceview.com website so we can get it there, and anyone who wants it, it's an 8-hour and 12-hour anger management program that's court-mandated or voluntary, both. And it's filled with exercises and videos and journaling and issues and information about how to manage conflict and anger, especially when you're in a divorce situation. So that's another piece of the puzzle for those who really need extra support.
Absolutely. Mike, as we pull this all together, because what I loved about having you on the show was that you shared some of your own experiences, and it makes it real. And just to have people see the frustration that you felt and how you were able to let it go, and how you now a role model for your son, and also how not to keep score as far as let that go. And I love turning it around to the positive side to say, keep score of what you did, whether the other person's doing it or not, of what you did. And of course that helps you feel good about yourself when you're doing that. But anything you'd like to add, Mike, to kind of pull it all together and end the show with something, another tip or anything like that?
I think actually if people are going through separation divorce, that would be another whole show, and I know you've had shows on this before, but collaborative law with the International Association of Collaborative Professionals, IACP, and that website is collaborativepractice.com. And the nutshell of that is the two lawyers come together with the two clients. They agree to do things outside of court, to sign an agreement not to go to litigation. They don't do things like cancel each other's health insurance and hide assets. And it's similar to mediation, but you have a lawyer with you every step of the way. And I think people should definitely look at that if they're thinking about separation or divorce. And you can even get off the litigation path and do collaborative law. Now a lot of jurisdictions will allow you to file an order with the court, a motion with the court to stay the court proceedings so that people can go to collaborative. And I always try to steer people towards that whenever it's appropriate, which is most of the time. So that would be the wrap up.
You're a collaborative attorney.
Yes.
And whenever possible, you try to make that the first option for people to consider.
Right. Yeah, all the time. And there are times too. We've had people in collaborative who had one this past year with another lawyer and I, and it started off. We had a meeting to decide, for the lawyers to decide whether we wanted them to do the collaborative method. That's how hostile it was. And we had like 3 meetings, and I can't say it was because of these meetings, but they actually reconciled and got back together and went to marriage counseling. And
Nice.
Wow.
I even had to give some money back.
Hey. Well, to me, Mike, you're the role model of an attorney. You're not out there to, for the litigation, but really to offer them first the collaborative practice and hopefully, end it as peacefully as possible or as co-parenting as best can be. So,
let's ask Mike where he practices so people can know if they're in that region.
Absolutely.
I'm in Baltimore, Maryland, in Baltimore County, actually, in Catonsville, right outside of Baltimore City.
Excellent. So what happens, Mike, when you're dealing with the other attorney who doesn't happen to be as pro-family as you and doesn't want to play the game the way we've been talking about it? Do you have any tricks up your sleeve or ways that you could create a better outcome on behalf of your client and the family?
Roz, what I can say to that question is don't even get me started. I hate to say it, and I'll admit it. There are so many lawyers out there who just throw fuel on the fire, who make mountains out of molehills, who just encourage litigation, and who you can tell from being on the other side could care less about the other side's outcome. That's just the way it is, and it's unfortunate. And I think what's happened over the years with more lawyers doing collaborative and that becoming more mainstream, now even some of those lawyers they have to now start embracing collaborative, at least on paper, and then hopefully they follow through in spirit down the road. But there are a lot of lawyers that get in the way, quite frankly. And it's funny because the lawyers in a given area, they know who they are. If I said, "Oh, I have a case with so and so," you can watch them cringe. So I mean, it's unfortunate. I guess it's in any profession, but there are definitely some people that need to practice what they preach as far as being a family lawyer.
I hope our viewers are really listening to that warning very carefully. If you're in a situation where you are making a decision about getting supported by a lawyer or a mediator or what path to take, you have to understand that not every lawyer, just because they say family or child on a website, is focused in the same direction. You have to really read between the lines. You have to ask questions and be very proactive to find out if you're getting someone who is really caring about the outcome for the family, because what happens when you get these other situations and the lawyers build the contention and the tension between the families is that it's harder to co-parent after that. There's more hatred, there's more separation, there's more mistrust, there's more anger, and the divorce ends, the lawyers are paid, and the road to your co-parenting is really going to be hindered. So it's an honor to be talking to attorneys like Mike Mastrossi, and if he's not in your area, you do need to seek out. And I do have on the Child-Centered Divorce website, childcentereddivorce.com, recommended experts who are in regions and even in other countries who I know personally has the same philosophy, because if you find someone who's into litigation first and money first, your outcome is not going to be family oriented.
And have that clarity. Make sure you find out their clarity. Well, also for Mike, as I mentioned earlier, to your show will be on our website, which is divorceview.com, and we'll have that up for the next week. And also, it will be on the freshstartafterdivorce.com. And we're all on the same page. We all want to help people get along and do the best they can for or during and after divorce, and then co-parenting is at the top of our list. But Mike, it's definitely been a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here, and certainly we'll keep you informed and get you back here again. And in the meantime,
let Mike give us his website one more
time. One more time, Mike.
MikeTheLawyer.com. MikeTheLawyer.com.
MikeTheLawyer.com is how to find Mike and his book. And thank you. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Nice talking to both of you. Thanks so much. Keep up the good work, guys.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye.
And also for our listeners, tune in next week. We'll see you again every Wednesday at 6 p.m. In the meantime, have a great week.